Hello guys, and welcome to your final Freshers event, First Steps into the LLB. This event will be in the form of a podcast featuring two great guests. Jim Hirchsman, a Pupil Barrister, Alumni, the former president of the Student Union at the University of Westminster, and Ella Yurtsever, a final year European law student whom too has experience studying internationally. I hope you guys enjoy the event, which will be in two parts due to some technical issues we've had. Thank you. Hello Ella.
Hi, Deniz.
It's great to have you on board with us. I've got a set of questions here I'd like to ask you. But just before that, I've briefly introduced you, but you can also introduce yourself if you wish.
Yes, no worries. Hi, guys. My name is Ella. Nice to meet you all. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Germany. I was born there. I then moved to New York. I studied there for around 4 years. And then I decided to study in London and came here in 2018. And I'm still here. And I don't know what's going to happen after my last year here. But yeah, that's it for now.
That sounds great. I mean, you've been around the block, as they say. So I'd like to start off with the first question. So how did you find adapting to London as well as the LLB course alongside your modules and peers?
So this question is, I think, really good because I know for myself that when I was the first year, I wish someone helped me or just told me, hey, Ella, do this and that, please, or what can I do, or is what I'm doing right? So the question we can just separate into two parts. So part one means for me adapting to London with moving into an accommodation, settling down, getting to know the people here in London, going back to just shops. It was easy because I already had experience in New York, so I knew what I had to do, and I knew I had this confidence, or I was even confident by that time. So I knew I had to do it. So I did it. So it was easy. Part one, done. When we look at part two, then it was like looking at university and the life there. It was really weird as I was new to everything. I just saw hundreds of new faces, new teacher and everything. It was a new environment for me, but I guess for everyone, it's the same, and it will be the same every year. But it's the start of every new thing, right? So you get used to that as well. Once you just are confident enough and are sure and happy and excited about what you want to do. So that's all you need to just have confidence and just be excited, because trust me, it will be amazing.
Sounds great. And this will kind of touch upon the second part of the first question you answered. Did you face any difficulties to the new way of assessment and teaching upper end in the UK in comparison to, I mean, establishing your home country will be difficult, but in your home country, so, New York, Germany, but yeah.
So yeah, there are different systems, definitely. Every country has its own teaching system, and this is nothing new. But obviously for me, it was a shock when I came here because I didn't know it, but it's also normal thing. Every system is different. And yes, I had quite difficulties. For an example, for this first semester, we all have the three modules. We have all the three same modules. We had tort law, we had contract law, and LPP. And I remember while writing my first essay that I had no structure, and that I used the one from America and mixed it with my German knowledge, and it was already messed up. It was not a good assignment. So when I gave that to my teacher, he was not satisfied. So he said, Ella, please, there's no structure. And this was my LPP teacher. He told me, he helped me. He said, Ella, I can see that you got confused, and I'm just helping you. And I want to let you know that IREC is the system we're using. It was just a small help, but it just changed my whole academic life. And since that, I'm just really happy about it. And yeah.
You're talking of LPP. You've also mentioned, to me privately, that just the structure as well as IRAC. Your module leader did tell you something that stuck by you, and you ultimately applied that to your current studies, and, for example, the final as well as the second year. Would you like to share it with us now?
Yes, of course, no problem. So I was waiting for you to ask this question as well, as I know that every European international student right now is maybe struggling with it, or is maybe also kind of upset because the language is a big problem. English isn't our mother language, and it's never going to be our mother language, but and this is the only thing we can improve as much as we can. We can be perfect, but never as someone who was born and raised here. And I was upset when I was writing my essay. So when I was talking to my friends, I noticed that my English was very weak, and I was like, okay, am I gonna be on like the same level one day, or am I not gonna be able? I don't know. I was just asking myself questions, and then my LPP teacher came to me and just looked into my eyes and said, Ella, we are all in this together. Like, you're not different than anyone else, because we are all learning the law language. So all the vocabularies which came, like, which are so different for you right now, it's going to be for everyone the same. So we are all learning it. And after that conversation, I just noticed, okay, that is quite, like, this is right. We are all learning, and we are all learning, and we will all improve. And I just want to add, Deniz, as well, that LPP was, I think, the best module, like, in the first semester, that helped me to be on the right path, as LPP showed me what law is and what studying law means. And I just want to underline it and just tell people, for you guys, like first year students, go and listen and do what they tell you to do, because you will see how much they actually help you and how much this will change your thinking of law.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I wanted to bring that up in this event was because even for example, myself, I am a British student, and just the legal terminology, just adapting to it in itself was really difficult. And I have had some peers that were discouraged because of the difficulties they faced in the first year especially, and they tend to be, well, in my case, international and European students. So just from the get-go, I wanted you as an example to give them a heads up that, look, we can all get through this together, and it may be a tough adaptation for some, and for some it may not be, because they could have done the LLB, not the LLB, the law A level in their previous studies. But yeah, so that's just something I always want to mention for the legal terminologies. But yeah, so as well as this, now kind of moving away from academics and moving into some internships or work experience, would you say that, like, for yourself, did you have any work experience in your first year, or how has your journey been, and what advice would you give, obviously, to the viewers now?
Good question as well. Again, I'm going to be honest to you and to the first year students, and I'm not also embarrassed. I can tell you from my heart what I've went through. First year, I did not find any work experience, nothing, no replies, nothing. I did not get anything back from them. But then I had to understand that I firstly need work experience in the country to be able then to work in a law firm here one day. So before just thinking about a law firm, I was just like, Ella, go and work somewhere. Also, obviously, to earn money, but more really just to be confident and find and just know the system here in the UK, just to get money from here, just to get to know people outside the university. And that's why in my second year, I then found a job in retail. It was a part-time job, and I still do it, and I still enjoy it. And this job also helped a lot during my time here in London, as I was always growing up, and they had a big part of it. Then I had the opportunity to work in a law workplace. But then again, guys, you know what happened because of Corona and all of that situation. It is what it is. It happened, unfortunately. I had the chance. That was enough for me to see, okay, Ella, you're capable, you can do it. And from now on, I just hope to see better days coming. And yeah, never give up. You will always get to that point where you want to be, just with time.
Yeah, I mean, your journey almost consisted of needing to actually have some groundwork to actually begin any experience to get to obviously the end result, which was your legal experience in the second year, which it's great to know that you have accomplished. But yeah, so I just believe you as an example will be great for students that may not also be able to find experience in the first year, but they can always begin somewhere just by gaining just a few transferable skills. Just for example, communication skills, organization skills. These skills obviously come into play not only in your lifestyle yourself, but I think in the legal workplace, in your personal life. So I feel like work experience initially is the most important thing. As well as this, I'd also advise students to have voluntary experience too. These are essentially two routes that students can take to hit the result, which was obviously legal experience. So, it can be through voluntary, it can just be through some retail or charity work. But yeah, so that sounds good. So I'd like to ask you the final question, which moves more on the generic side. So it's not really academic directly or career path directly related. But I'd like to ask, do you have any tips for students in the first year that you wish you would have known, that you'd like to let them know about? Anything generic?
Yeah. Yes, I do. And that would be just structure. Structure is such an important thing in your life. You will not notice it when you just say the word structure, but once you have it in your life, you will see how important and what an impact it has on your like studies and on your life and everything. So it maybe sounds really funny to you, but have a timetable of what you're going to do this week. Every week, renew it. Write down which days you're going to go to the library. Write down which days you're going to study at home. Write down when you're working, or write down when you're going to just meet up with your friends and have lunch. So as I said, it really sounds funny, and maybe you'll be like, oh my gosh, is this girl crazy? But no, guys, there's nothing better than to structure your life.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, a structure is very important, which is something I didn't have in my first year. But yeah, so that's that. If you have any questions for myself, I'm happy to answer it. And if not,
yes, I do, Deniz. I was just going to ask you the exact same question you just asked me, because I think this is a quite important question, especially for first year students. So I would just like to know, what do you think? What is the advice for first year in general for every student right now? What would you advise them to do?
yeah, I mean, yeah, you've put me on the spot here for sure. So formally speaking, what I will do is, apart from the core and concentrate books that most students tend to rely on in their first year, especially, I would say go above and beyond. So take a look at journal articles, take a look at obviously further reading content, as well as, so one thing I do all the time, up until today actually, so I try to find something that I particularly like about the module. So, for example, in the first year, I liked the public law. I liked the administrative side more than the constitutional side. So, what I did was I've read additional content on obviously the area I'm interested in, and that way I was able to include that information into my exam. And obviously, that then goes into further reading content, which would then result in a higher mark. So, I would definitely agree with Ella. Have some form of structure, as well as try to gain more knowledge in the areas you're interested in, which will obviously then benefit you, because you wouldn't need to kind of revise for it, because you're personally interested in that. And then that way, once you do include that into your assessments, it be exams or open book courseworks, I think that will be my go-to advice.
Deniz, I definitely agree with you. And as I did the mistake in my first year, I always had the easiest book, the short books, especially the concentration ones. So I definitely agree. Thank you so much for having me, Deniz. I appreciate that a lot. And I hope I helped a lot of students with this small podcast or whatever it is right now. And I'm looking forward for new events, and can't wait to see you all in person, hopefully next semester. And yeah, hope have a great time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on board. Thank you. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. If you like, you can introduce yourself. I've already done so, but you could go again.
Well, I'm happy to give a brief indication. My name's Jim Hirchsman. I studied at Westminster for my undergrad and spent some time in the debating and bar society on their committees. I then spent a year in the Students' Union as president. I then did a master's at UCL, followed by the bar course at the University of Law, where I was Master of Moots. I then had a year out where I did a bit of teaching for undergrads, but also some appearances in the County Court for LPC Law. And I'm coming to the end currently a pupillage at 5 Pump Court, which is a common law set based in London in the Temple, and I've accepted tenancy there, which will be starting in the near future.
Sounds great. I mean, I'd hope to have an intro like that sometime soon. But
and I'm sure you will do.
Yeah, so we have a event which is the final Freshers event of the entire Freshers week or month, shall I say. The event titled First Steps into the LLB. So I've got a set of questions here that I'd like to ask you. And yeah, so we can begin with the first question, which is, how can a first year LLB student become proactive in regards to their academics?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a difficult question, because I imagine lots of first years will come from slightly different backgrounds and have had different academic experiences. If they're like me, and when I started first year, my academics weren't particularly good, or at least my A levels weren't. So I needed to improve. But I know that some people will come into the first year with very good academics and perhaps be somewhat ahead of where I was. So I think there's 3 main things that you need to think about. To succeed academically, I think first of all, it's a function of time spent. So you need to make sure that you're spending time doing the reading and preparing for the classes, because you'll do better. Much like going to the gym or getting better at any other skill, more time spent, you tend to get better outcomes. So that's the first thing. I think you need to invest the time, and that might take you a while to build up the necessary skills to do that. So it's like stamina building. Being able to sit down and read for 4 or 5 hours at a stretch might take time to build up that concentration level. So that's the first thing. The second thing is quality time. It's all well and good saying you've spent 8 hours in the library, but if you spent the time talking to peers or surfing a social network, you're probably not going to quite see the results. A slightly tough method, but one that I have to say I did use in second year, is to get a stopwatch, and you start the timer when you start studying, and you stop at the moment you stop studying. So the moment you search social media or check the news or speak to someone, you stop the stopwatch, and from that you'll have a good idea of how much constructive time you actually spent. And you might find your 8 hours in the library was actually only 2 hours of work. So make sure it's quality time, that you're actually focusing it on doing the work. 4 hours of quality time is better than 8 hours of poor time. And the third thing is you've got to beat tedium, and you've got to find methods to do 2 things. First of all, to instill the knowledge. So that's a question of repetition. Reading a textbook once won't necessarily mean that you retain the cases. So it's important to have useful notes, to read it again if necessary, or to go through the knowledge in different ways. That might be to read the relevant chapter, then perhaps go through the PowerPoint from your lecture, and then perhaps review your notes and put them together. So a few methods you might like: mind maps, speaking to peers and comparing your notes to their notes, and I think that would be a helpful indication to see how you're doing.
Second point, for sure, I need to start doing that a bit more. I mean, the libraries are closed, but I mean, I should definitely have a stopwatch for sure, because I think I will benefit from that very much.
Yeah, no, I can believe it. And I think it's about learning habits, isn't it? You might find, okay, so I have a tendency to check social media every 15 minutes. I just need to cut that out. Or people keep coming and talking to me, I need to go to a different library and keep away from LTS and perhaps try Marylebone or even Harrow.
We have a lot of options at the University of Westminster, so I guess we're lucky in that sense.
Yeah, no, I certainly think you are. And if you go to Harrow, you of course benefit from as I remember, a newly designed library drawing on the skill from the School of Architecture at Westminster. Quite a beautiful campus.
Yeah, for sure. So the second question, so we're going to slightly shift from the academics to careers and the professors. So the second question will be, what are the necessary steps in order to become a barrister? So it'd be very self-explanatory for you probably, but for the first year students, that's definitely going to be something they're going to be now listening very carefully to.
Yeah, so I think there's two elements to that. The first are the formal requirements, so the basics that you need to become a barrister. And then there's what I call the reality. So some of the things that perhaps aren't advertised, but are probably true if you want to get to the bar. So the first thing in terms of the formal requirements, you need a law degree, a qualifying law degree. So the LLB qualifies as that. Or if you're not studying law, you could do a general diploma in law, which is essentially the 7 core legal subjects which you study in 1 year. So that's step 1. Step 2 is the bar exam. In my time, that was called the Bar Professional Training Course, but I think they've changed the name now. And the third step is pupillage, which is 1 year split into 6 months, first 6 and second 6. First 6, you generally follow members of chambers around and do research tasks. And the second 6, you're on your feet representing clients, but under supervision. And if you succeed in that, you'll then be taken on as a tenant afterwards. And with that, of course, you can then apply for your full practicing certificate.
Definitely sounds
so that,
like stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, say that again?
Yeah, it sounds like some tough stuff there, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose for most people that will take at least 5 years. So those are the formal requirements, but in the reality, it's competitive. So some 1,600, I think, people apply for pupillage every year, and in a normal year, there's about 400 places. So you've got to swim amongst the masses somewhat and try to get ahead. And the reality of that is that you need a good 2-1 or a first-class degree to have a good chance at pupillage. Or if you don't have that, then you need significant experience. So if you get a 2-2 from your undergrad, then it might be that you need to spend 2 or 3 years as a paralegal doing some work at a law firm, perhaps, developing the skills, and then showing that you have the aptitude to succeed at the bar to represent clients. So even if you don't get a 2-1 or a first, I wouldn't rule it out, but I think you've got to just be realistic and accept it might be a slightly longer path to get there in the end.
Sure. There was a few questions about this, about if you'd need to do paralegal work in only solely one workplace. And for the people that may ask this question, it could be up for employers. So, that's just something that you can also bear in mind. So that's the, in some sense, the groundwork of obviously becoming a barrister. So would you say there are some specific characteristics or personal traits that you would suggest to make a good barrister, which this does go into the third question?
Yeah, so there's broadly 2 kinds of barristers. So you've got self-employed barristers, which are the majority, and some who are at the employed bar. So you can be so the government legal service, for example. So if you work for the government, you might be employed as a barrister, but most are independent. And what that means for the majority of people wanting to become barristers, that you need to be willing to be self-employed. And that comes with challenges. If you take holiday, you won't be paid. Your employer doesn't guarantee you work. You need to have a profile and a cell. And whilst you might be with a group of barristers where work comes in because you brand yourself together as a group, ultimately it's you yourself pulling in the money and doing the work. So the way you market yourself and the way that money comes in. So some areas of work pay more quickly than others. Often you might wait 3 or 4 months to be paid. If you have an employer, you're going to get a paycheck every month. So that's not for everyone, that independence that comes with that. And that's a real consideration I think most people need. And to succeed as a barrister, you need to be independent. You need to be a hard worker because people are relying on you to represent them, often very pivotal moments in their life, and often one of the most stressful moments in their life. And you're there to fulfill a very sensitive and very important role. And it's important, therefore, that you work hard to make sure justice is done. I think you need to be robust. It can be emotionally taxing because you're taking the responsibility of your client's stresses and their case on your shoulders to some extent because you're representing it. You need to be pragmatic. It's not enough to just know the law. Sometimes a technical legal argument whilst very attractive, might be very expensive, or it might just miss the point of what the client wants. Often commercially, clients just want the case to go away and to avoid the risk and the time that it's taking them to deal with it. So they may just want to settle, pay out money, and have it gone, even if they contested it and would win the legal point. So you've got to be pragmatic, I think. And last of all, of course, honest. As a barrister, you're an officer of the court, and whilst you need to act in every client's best interest, you've got an overriding duty to the court and not to mislead the court. So honesty and integrity are essential qualities for any barrister.
For sure, that's, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but that again is tough stuff, as well as, you know, your personality inside your professionalism. So, you know, again, it's some tough stuff, you know. But so this will be this question is tailored more for, I would say, second and third year students, but then again, it would also be great for first year students that have access to a great barrister like yourself, which, for example, I did too, you know. So I think they would take a lot of information from this answer. So from this question followed up by the answer. So what would you recommend in terms of knowledge, activity and preparation as to students who aim to secure pupillage in their later stages of their studies?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that anyone looking to do that should consider is joining an Inn of Court. So as I understand it, I think you can do that from second year or maybe third year now, but I'd certainly make inquiries as early as possible to an Inn of Court. I should probably pause to explain what Inns of Court are.
Yeah,
there are 4 of them.
Yes.
And you need to join one if you want to do the bar course and indeed be a barrister. There's Lincoln's Inn, Gray's Inn, Inner Temple and Middle Temple. They offer training for people becoming barristers and indeed barristers who are qualified, so that they have continuing professional development. They also offer dining facilities, so you can have lunch there, for example, members' rooms, and social events, so people can bond, members of the profession can bond. I said earlier that barristers often work alone or self-employed, but collegiality is a big thing of the bar, so solidarity between those who work and do the role and understand what the role entails. And the inns are essential for developing that culture, which is really important for exchanging ideas. So I join an Inn of Court as soon as you can. Second of all, I'd look out for scholarships. And there's 2 reasons for that. First of all, the most obvious is the financial benefit if you secure one. But second of all, because the Inns of Court interview you for scholarships and award them on the basis of your performance in that interview. And a lot of people I know, often with incredibly good academic records, don't get a scholarship first time. But by joining the Inn as soon as you can, and there's a possibility that you can apply for scholarships in more than one season. And that, of course, increases your chances then of being successful, not only for the scholarship, but also in other interviews where you're going to be interviewed by barristers. And that's obviously something you'll need to do if you want to become a barrister by obtaining pupillage. Third, mini pupillages or placements. Make sure you get some legal experience, know what it means to be a barrister, and also know why you don't want to do other things, becoming a solicitor, perhaps, or becoming general legal counsel in a company. So make sure you've done some experience and really identified why this is the career for you. Consider volunteering in pro bono things. That's number 4. So volunteering your time to help people who can't afford legal representation. I know Westminster has a law clinic, which is a good thing to look at in first instance, but also more broadly, the free representation unit. You can do social security tribunals, people who are appealing decisions not to give them benefits, and later on, the employment tribunal, so people trying to claim against their employers and making sure they're represented. And finally, just keep chipping away. I think often when I was looking at barristers' profiles, I was quite impressed by how much they seemed to have achieved. But if you consider that it's a 5-year journey at the quickest, and you achieve one thing every year, you might find after 5 years you have a rather impressive looking CV. So enjoy the journey and chip away, and remember it doesn't need to be done overnight. A little bit every year.
Sure, and I'd just like to also note that for the students that can't find any work experience, or even at the legal clinic, there are opportunities currently. Well, actually, there may not be as many as I was informed, but you could also volunteer at the courts, just simply as a witness person. So I think there definitely are opportunities out there, and you just need to find them. That's literally it. And in the first year, especially, you will have 3 years ahead. But I think the quicker you get into it, the better. For example, for myself, in my first year, I simply attended interview sessions. So it's like speed interview sessions set up by the Westminster Law School. And I actually met a solicitor there. And that way I guaranteed an internship at Slater Gordon, for example. So it's just, again, I was in my first year. So they may tell you, yeah, first year you can't do much, but if you go out, they definitely, you can definitely achieve some things out there, But I think we actually missed the question. My mistake. It was, what advice and tips would you give students in their undergraduate studies to enhance their transferable skills?
Yeah, really good question. I think the first thing has to be to plan your summer. I don't know whether you are better than I was. I'm sure you were, Deniz, but certainly in first year, I hadn't really thought about the summer break and the 3 months from university finishing to the next year starting, and what I was going to do with that time. So if you can get legal placements in that time, or perhaps volunteer for an area, if you have the ability not to need to work, then that's something you should consider, because that's a really valuable period of months where you're not studying, and where you can hopefully develop those skills and fill some gaps in your CVs. Second of all, and I know Deniz has already done this, but I'd suggest get involved with student societies. If you can lead a society, then all the better, because I think you'll learn a lot in terms of time management.
For sure, yes.
By doing that, so transferable skills of just juggling more than one commitment, but also they're just a great source of knowledge. The law society, bar society are great at linking you in with professionals and giving you an insight into some legal jobs available, and making sure you understand what they involve. And one of my favorite societies when I was a student, the debating society, is of course very important for learning how to argue persuasively. And again, the more of that you can do, I think the better for any legal career. I certainly think back of the 3 years I spent debating at university, and think that the skills I learned from that are very much in play every day when I work. Use alumni and network when you can, go to events, and last of all, set goals. Keep a constant eye on the destination you want to get to and what your CV needs to look like in order for you to get there, and make sure that every year you are getting some of those gaps in the CV filled. Hopefully it'll be at the point it needs to be when you start applying.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't realize, after every answer Jim is giving, I'm trying to give you guys some tips here and there. So you can also get your CV checked out. Now it will be virtually. Again, it will be through the law school. So it's as simple as booking an appointment and getting your CV checked out. They can also help you with cover letters, which it is really, 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 really useful, because you can get the perspective of not just yourself, maybe your dad, your cousin. You can actually get a professor that can criticize you, unless if you have a father like mine that just always told me I'm a great person, So so you definitely will benefit from that service too at our Westminster. But yeah, so the final question is, as a barrister, what are your thoughts on the bar route being off-putting for those that come from a less affluent background? Or should this be completely avoided, ignored, or is this untrue?
No, it's a really important question, and one that I think needs to be addressed more often. There is no doubt that the route to the bar is expensive. You know, you need to commit to your 3-year undergrad. That obviously costs money because you're not working during that time. You've got the tuition fees, often accommodation to pay on top of that. So that's the starting point. The bar course itself, in my year, was approximately £18,000, and that's a huge amount of money. And funding for it is not as readily available as it is for the undergraduate courses. So if you do a master's with the bar course, I think you're entitled to a £10,000 loan from the government, but that's still £8,000 in cash that you need to find. And in addition to that, you then need to live, food, accommodation, etc. And those are the obvious costs. The hidden costs are that because getting to the bar is so competitive, you need extracurriculars on your CV. And most of them involve working or investing time for free. So if you're volunteering your time doing pro bono and you're not being paid for it, you need either cash reserves, which allow you to do that, or you need to have worked for a while to save up the money. So there's no doubt that there are some real structural challenges there for getting to the bar if you don't have resources. So what can you do about that? Well, there are scholarships available, and some of the Inns of Court, all the Inns of Court, offer significant sums of money, some of them paying the entirety of the bar course fee, the full £18,000. So I think it's definitely important to make sure you're interviewing for them. You need to look at the providers themselves and the scholarships that they offer, and make sure you're making the most out of them. But that doesn't get around the fact that you need to put those applications in, and of course that's another barrier and another burden that you need to overcome. So I think that probably deals initially with the financial element of it. In terms of getting there, if you're from a less affluent background, lots of people have and lots of people do. In my experience, I think it takes a little longer because you might need to work a year or two to save up the money required to do the next steps to get the experience. So if rather than going straight into the bar course, you perhaps work for a few years as a paralegal, I would encourage you not to look at that as lost time. I'd say you're saving the money required for the bar course, but you're also developing skills which are going to make you a better barrister. Someone who's worked for 2 years in the legal sector on real cases is, in my view, going to be much better than someone who's just gone through the academic route and gone straight to the bar. So I wouldn't see that out as wasted time. And I think you just need to back yourself and realize that when you get to the bar, you might progress quicker than those who've taken a more direct route. I'd encourage you to network. So, use Alumni, get involved with the Inns of Court, practice interviewing as much as you can, and make use of the pathways that are opening. The bar is aware of the barriers to entry, and many of its members are taking steps to make the path easier, to removing those barriers. Bridging the Bar is a charity that launched this year that is trying to offer many pupilages, for example, to people from underrepresented groups, and that includes socioeconomically underrepresented groups. So if you don't have the resources, I'd certainly look at that as a route to potentially getting in.
Yeah, I mean, it just is down to personal circumstances, and I guess for the students that are already undergrad, they probably are aware of their financials and obviously the reality, as well as studying in London itself, really expensive. So this final question, it's a bit more on the informal side. So it's just, do you have any generic advice for, it can be for first years, it can be for maybe international students or European students that have just come here to just do the bar, or just any generic advice, or even just advice when you were a student yourself?
Yeah, I think the best advice I ever got was, if you don't know what you want to do or where you want to go, that's not necessarily a problem. but make sure that you're working out where you want to go. Make sure you're finding the experiences to identify the things you love and the things you hate. And to me, joining student societies is going to be the best way of doing that. You get to meet your peers. You'll get much more out of your university experience if you develop friendships over the 3 years that you're studying. And you'll get insights from speaking to those people involved with those societies as to the work experience they're doing or the career paths that they're looking at. And that exchange of knowledge, I think, is the richest source of information that's available. And I was always amazed how many people seem to miss getting involved with societies, and I always thought that was a great shame. So that would be my main generic advice. And enjoy the journey. You're lucky to be studying, to be able to spend every day thinking about the subject that you're reading about, and I think you'll miss it when you graduate. So enjoy it whilst it lasts.
Sure. Thank you so much. You've answered absolutely all the questions in the best way possible. If there's any questions you have for me, or if you would like to, possibly, get involved ever in the future again, it will be great to have you again. But, we've been grateful as a society, and obviously me personally, myself, you are somebody I've always been, looking up to. And so thank you very, very much. And yes, thank you.
That's very kind. Delighted to have joined again, and if I can assist in the future, I'd be delighted to do so. And I'm sure you'll be paying it forward in the years to come when you graduate and no doubt succeed in the profession. I suppose the only question I'd have, which would be for your listeners, is what does the Law Society have planned this year?
So for this year, our vision has changed quite a bit compared to, we can say, from what we can recall in the last 3-4 years. So the way we're trying to do it now is we're not trying to base the Law Society solely on solicitoring. It is, we see the Law Society as, so, why do people say, oh, ensure that you join your university's Law Society? Only because, many people do see as a society where they can even have the goal of trying to be, paralegal, and they can still be out of society, or, somebody that just wants the legal knowledge and that wants to go back to their country. So we want it to be a place where, we want to hold both mutes, we want to hold debates. We will ensure that we collaborate with the necessary societies, as well as, for example, the ELSA Society, which was introduced a few years back, and also the Feminist Law Society. So, we want to be the society in between, and, you can come to us with absolutely anything. You can tell us, I would like a event on this. So in terms of, formally what we've prepared, so we have got commercial awareness competitions, and we have a four-way collaboration with Queen Mary as a law society. So we have a few things planned already for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And we too have, as I said, moots that we will be collaborating with the Bar Society with. So we have many things, and we just believe that the more you get involved, the easier it will be for you to have the bigger picture and the vision. So, I myself didn't get involved with societies in my first year only because I didn't know about it. And, if you do know about it, spread the word. And I hope you guys also have a great, undergrad experience, but it being informed and, consistent of having knowledge in both commercially and academically, I think that's where it is. And yes, so that's that.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, because of course the Law Society is one of the bodies of which solicitors are members, and I think sometimes the association between the Law Society at Westminster and the Law Society nationally become somewhat intertwined. But of course, a law society could also just be a general student society catering for all law students. And I know at some other universities, they have structures where the Law Society has debating officers, mooting officers, bar society officers, and offers it all. So it sounds very exciting, and it's encouraging to hear the collaborations that you're planning with the other student-led groups.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
thank you, Deniz.
soon.